Hey everyone, and welcome! Today we're going to jump right into some English basics, and we're going to do it by following a fun little story. We'll learn how to talk about everyday things, figure out where they are, and even describe some actions. Sound good? Let's get started.
So every good story starts with a question, right? Well, here's ours. Meet Mash. He seems a little lost. He's looking all over for something, asking, "Where is my hat?" And that, my friends, is the mystery we're going to unravel together. Okay, so here's our plan for this lesson. First up, we'll tackle that missing hat. Then, we'll figure out how to say where things are. After that, we'll name some everyday objects, learn to describe them as new or old, and then we'll get into actions and putting them in order. And to wrap it all up, it's going to be your turn to practice.
All right, let's set the scene. Mash is in this room staring at an empty table. You can just tell he thought his hat was right there. Then, in comes Nasira, and she tells him, "I put it in the other room." Uh-oh, the search officially begins.
And you know, this whole situation brings us to our very first lesson. How exactly do we talk about where things are? Turns out we use some special little words to describe an object's location, and our story is going to give us the perfect examples to learn from.
So Nasira, trying to be helpful, gives Mash a clue. She says, "It is on a hook there." See that word, on? That's a huge clue for us too. It tells us exactly where the hat is.
So what does on really mean? Well, it's pretty simple. We use it to show something is sitting on top of something else and it's touching it. Think about Mash's hat resting right there on that hook. It's above the hook and it's touching it. Makes sense, right?
But wait, there's a twist in our story. When Mash finally gets his hat, he finds $1,000. What? How did that even get there? Well, it turns out, earlier, the wind blew his hat off, and it just happened to land on the ground right on top of the money. So, you could say the money was under the hat, and the hat was over the money. See? We just learned two more words, under and over, and they're total opposites that help us talk about location.
Okay, so we're getting pretty good at saying where things are. Now let's learn the names for some of the common things you'd find around a house.
Let's imagine Nasira is in the kitchen, opening a drawer. What's she grabbing? First, she gets a knife. Then she pulls out a fork. And finally, a spoon.
Now, if we want to talk about all of them at once, as a group, we'd say, these are knives, forks, and spoons. Simple enough? They're all things we use when we eat.
All right, let's switch things up. Picture this. Nasira isn't at home anymore. Now she's in a store, and she's getting a new dress. So what kind of things do you usually find in a store like that?
Well, you'd find things like dresses, obviously, but also shoes, maybe some gloves, and stockings. And what do we call all these things together? They're all types of clothing. So clothing is kind of the big umbrella name for all of them. Okay, let's take stock. We can name things. We can say where they are. That's awesome. But what if we want to describe them? Let's check out two really useful words for that. New and old.
Just take a look at this. On one side, you've got this beautiful, shiny dress, kind of like the one Nasira is looking for, and a nice clean pipe. For these, we'd say, this dress is new, or this pipe is new. Now, look at the other side. A worn-out dress, a broken pipe. For these, we say, this dress is old, and this pipe is old. So, new and old are great words that tell us something about the object, like its age or condition.
So, the world is full of action, right? People and things are always moving, always doing something. So let's figure out how we can talk about those actions, and maybe even more important, the order that they happen in.
Okay, check this out. We've got a girl picking an apple from a tree. It happens in a few clear steps. So, step 1, she puts her hand up. Step 2, she takes the apple right off the branch. And step 3, she puts it in her basket. See that? 1, 2, 3. Following those steps helps the whole story make sense. Using words like first, second, and third is super helpful for showing the order of things.
Another way to look at this is to use two more great words, before and after. So before she did anything, where was the apple? It was on the branch. And after she picked it, now the apple is in the basket. It's a really simple way to show how her actions caused a change. The main idea here is that using these kinds of words helps you tell a story that's easy to follow.
All right, you've learned so much already. We've covered location, objects, descriptions, and actions. So, now it's your turn to shine. Let's put it all together and see what you've learned. You ready?
Okay, first question. Let's go back to our story about Mosh's hat and that surprise money. Take a good look. Is the money over or under the hat? I'll give you a second.
You got it. The money is under the hat. The hat is sitting on top, covering it. Awesome job.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. What do we call these things when we see them all together like this?
Exactly. These are knives, forks, and spoons. You remembered all three of their names. Fantastic.
All right, here we go. Last question for today. Take a close look at this shoe. What do you think? Is this shoe new or is it old?
Yes, you're right. This shoe is new. You can tell because it's all shiny and clean, not scuffed up or worn out. You did some really fantastic work today. Seriously, you've taken a huge step forward in learning English. You've started to learn how to describe the world around you. So my question for you is, what will you learn tomorrow?